My parents told my brother to take my house because I don't have a family. I'm a single man in my early 30s who just bought my first house after living in a camper for 2 years following homelessness. And let me tell you, the journey to get here was absolutely brutal. But before I go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me where are you watching from? And have you ever had family try to take something that you worked hard for? Because what my family did to me, I still can't believe it happened. Let me take you back to early 2020. The pandemic hit, and like millions of other people, I lost my job. My roommate lost his too. We were renting this nice 2-bedroom condo together, and suddenly neither of us could afford it on unemployment money alone. The lease was ending, and my roommate bailed early to move back in with his relatives. I had nowhere to go. I had to sell nearly everything I owned. Furniture, electronics, clothes, most of it went for pennies on the dollar because I was desperate. I kept asking myself how I'd let this happen. I should have been living somewhere cheaper so I could save money to fall back on. But I'd loved living the high life. And now that high life had thrown me off a cliff. The only thing I refused to sell was my truck. I've always loved trucks. Always. So I came up with a plan that I thought was temporary. I found a beat-up camper for $1,000 and mounted it on my truck bed. My plan was simple: live in it for a few months, find a new job, get back on my feet. I thought maybe I could park it at my parents' house. My younger brother Marcus, he's 29, still lived there with his wife Veronica and their 4 kids. They had plenty of room for a camper in the driveway. Or so I thought. When I drove up to their house that first time, my mother opened the door and looked at me standing there next to my truck with this camper on the back. And you know what she did? She laughed. Actually laughed right in my face. My brother Marcus came out next, and his wife Veronica was right behind him. They both stood there on the porch pointing at me. Marcus shouted loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Look at the homeless bum. Nice house, loser." Veronica joined in, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Maybe you should have made better life choices, honey." I felt my face burning with shame, but I swallowed it down. I needed their help. I asked my mother if I could just park in their driveway temporarily. Just until I got back on my feet. She tilted her head and smiled that smile I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. The smile that meant no. "Well, sweetheart, we do have a full house already. But I suppose we could make an exception. If you pay us $1,200 a month." I stared at her. $1,200 a month. Just to park a camper. That was more than an actual apartment cost in some parts of town. I was unemployed. I was on unemployment benefits that barely covered food and gas. "Mom, that's insane. I can't afford that." "You know I can't." She shrugged. "Then I guess you can't stay here. We have to think about our situation too, you know." Marcus was still laughing. The sound echoed in my ears as I drove away. That night, I parked in a Walmart parking lot. I lay in that cramped camper listening to every sound outside, terrified someone would try to break in. I didn't sleep. Every car door slam, every shopping cart rattle, every footstep made my heart race. I'd never felt so vulnerable in my entire life. And that's how it started. I became one of those people living out of their vehicle. Nomadic. Desperate. Invisible. I drove around looking for safe places to park. Some parking lots allowed overnight camping. Some didn't. I got chased off more times than I can count. Once, this guy came up to my window claiming he was with an HOA. I wasn't even parked on a residential street. When I questioned which HOA he represented, he got aggressive. Started threatening me. I moved just to avoid the confrontation. I had to figure out electricity. My camper had a small refrigerator, and I needed it to work. So I started carrying this long extension cord, sneaking around at night to plug it into outside outlets on random buildings. I know that's stealing. I know it's wrong. But I had to keep my batteries charged. I had to keep my food from spoiling. I did what I had to do to survive. Finding bathrooms was its own nightmare. I kept a mental map of every public restroom in the area. Fast food places. Gas stations. Libraries. Parks. I became an expert on which ones were cleanest, which ones closed early, which ones had security that would chase you out. Months went by like this. Months of living in parking lots, using extension cords I'd unplugged before dawn, mapping out bathrooms like they were treasure locations. I felt like I'd fallen through a crack in society. Like I didn't exist anymore. But then something changed. I finally landed a new job. Not in retail, thank God. I'd worked retail through college and swore I'd never go back. This was a warehouse position in the neighboring city. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was steady. My boss, his name was Frank, he was this older guy who owned the company. When I explained my situation during the interview, he didn't judge me. He just nodded slowly and said, "You know what? You can park that camper in the back lot by the warehouse. There are these old employee parking spaces back there that nobody uses anymore. You'd be doing me a favor, actually. Place needs security. I almost cried right there in his office. Frank let me take the camper off my truck and set it up permanently in one of those forgotten spaces. He even let me plug into the building for power and water. In exchange, I worked for free on Sundays when the office was empty except for the janitor and security guard. It was the best deal I'd ever made. The night security guard, this guy named Devin, he became one of my closest friends. We'd sit in the break room at 2 in the morning drinking coffee and talking about life. He never made me feel less than for living in a camper. He treated me like a person. For 2 years, I lived in that warehouse parking lot. I showered at my friend's apartment or at the gym. I used the warehouse bathroom instead of dealing with the camper's portable toilet. I heated the camper in winter with a small electric heater. Summers were brutal though. No AC. I had to get a used portable air conditioner just to make it bearable. But I was saving money. Every penny I could. I worked overtime constantly. Frank kept promoting me, giving me more responsibility, better pay. I learned new skills from other employees. And eventually, midway through this year, I got promoted to supervisor. The salary was better than my old pre-pandemic job. That's when I decided I wanted a house. Not another rental. A house. Something stable. Something that could never be taken from me because of a lost job or a failed lease. I found this 3-bedroom manufactured home on a small property just 2 miles from work. The seller accepted an offer $10,000 less than asking price. I used nearly my entire savings for the down payment. Got approved for a home loan. And just like that, I was a homeowner. I didn't have to live in a camper anymore. I moved everything in, set my camper up in the backyard as its own little guest house, and I felt like I'd finally made it. Like I'd climbed out of that hole I'd fallen into during the pandemic. I was proud. Really, genuinely proud. So I did what anyone would do. I took a photo of myself standing in front of my house, holding up the keys, and I posted it on Facebook. The caption read, 2 years in a camper, but I finally have keys to my own house. To everyone who said I'd never recover from 2020, I did it. Never give up. The comments poured in. Extended family members, old friends, coworkers, everyone was congratulating me. It felt amazing. But my parents didn't comment. Neither did Marcus or Veronica. 3 weeks of complete silence from them. I should have known that silence meant something. But I thought maybe, just maybe, they were finally going to leave me alone. Maybe they'd moved on with their own lives and didn't care about mine anymore. I was so wrong. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was unpacking boxes in the kitchen when I heard it. The sound of multiple car doors slamming in my driveway. All at once. Like synchronized swimmers but with car doors. I looked out the front window and my stomach dropped. My parents' sedan. Marcus's minivan. And all 4 of his kids spilling out onto my driveway like they owned the place. They'd found me. And they hadn't even called first. I walked to the front door and opened it. Before I could say hello, before I could ask what they were doing here, they pushed past me. Just shoved their way inside like tourists barging into a museum. The kids immediately scattered, running through rooms, touching everything. My mother walked slowly through each room, her heels clicking on my floors. She kept making these little comments under her breath. So much space. Too much space for one person. 3 bedrooms. That's more than we have. All alone in this big house. My father was examining the walls, the windows, like he was evaluating the place. Marcus kept walking back and forth between rooms, nodding to himself. And Veronica, Marcus's wife, she had this smirk on her face. This knowing, creepy smirk that she kept flashing at me. I didn't understand it yet. But I would. Marcus remarked as he passed me again, "Man, this place is way closer to my job than Mom and Dad's house. Like, 20 minutes closer." My mother touched the kitchen counter. "What do you even do with 3 bedrooms when you're all by yourself? When you don't have a wife or kids?" Veronica leaned against the doorframe of my bedroom, that smirk still plastered on her face. "Must be so nice having all this space just for yourself. What do you even use the extra rooms for?" I was about to answer when Marcus put his hand on my shoulder. Heavy. Steering me toward my bedroom. "Hey, can we talk privately for a second?" Everyone else suddenly filed out onto the front porch. The door closed behind them. It was just me and Marcus in my bedroom. He closed the door. And that's when the nightmare really began. Marcus turned to face me and his expression shifted. The casual brother act dropped. His face became serious. Cold. "Look," he said, not waiting for me to respond. "This house is way too much for you alone. We're moving in. You've already got the camper outside, so you'll be fine living there." I blinked. "Wait, what?" He kept talking like I hadn't spoken. "There'll need to be some changes, obviously. You can't just walk in whenever you want. You'll need to text us first, give us notice before coming inside. And there'll be some house rules. Curfews. That kind of thing. Marcus, this is my. Veronica's pregnant with number 5. That was a lie, but I didn't know it yet. We desperately need the space. This place is way closer to my job. It just makes sense. So we're doing this. He extended his hand like we were closing a business deal. I stared at that hand hanging in the air between us. My brother was standing in my bedroom telling me he was taking my house. Not asking. Telling. Like I had no say in the matter. In my own house. That I'd bought with money I'd earned after 2 years of living in a parking lot. And not once, not one single time, had he mentioned paying rent. I raised my voice. Louder than I'd ever raised it at Marcus before. Growing up, I'd been punished every time I stood up to him. But this was my house. Hell no. The words came out like a gunshot. Marcus actually stumbled backward. Outside on the porch, everyone went silent. Then I heard it. The front door opening. Footsteps rushing back inside. And suddenly I was surrounded. My parents, Veronica, and Marcus all stood around me in my living room. Circling me. Trapping me. That's when I realized. This was planned. All of it. The unannounced visit. The tour. Marcus pulling me aside. They'd choreographed this whole thing. I pulled my phone out and hit record. Held it down by my side, but the microphone was on. I wasn't going to let this happen without evidence. Marcus got close. Really close. Inches from my face. I could smell his cologne. He was trying to intimidate me. You don't deserve this house, he said, his voice low and threatening. You're single. You have no kids. You don't need it. I have a family. I need this house more than you do. You never even offered to pay me rent, I shot back. I shouldn't have to pay rent. Family comes first. And Mom and Dad already said you were going to do this, so stop being difficult. I looked at my parents. You said what? My mother stepped forward, her voice taking on that sickly sweet tone she used when she wanted something. Just do it for Marcus, honey. It's the right thing to do for family. My father crossed his arms. Your brother needs this. You're being selfish. Veronica's voice rose above everyone else's, dramatic and trembling. I'm pregnant. We have 4 kids. How can you be so cruel? The phrase started then. Over and over. From all 3 of them. Do it for Marcus. Just do it for Marcus. You have to do it for Marcus. Like a chant. Like I was in some kind of cult and they were trying to brainwash me. My heart was pounding. I felt trapped in my own living room. But I kept that phone recording. Every word. Every threat. Every manipulation. Veronica's voice got louder. I'm pregnant. We need this house. You can't do this to me. Something in me snapped. I have no obligation to you, I said, my voice ice cold. You just assumed you could take from me. Like I would just allow it. I owe you nothing. I looked directly at Veronica. You're a stuck-up bitch who's never had any respect for me. So I don't care what you think. I don't care how many kids you have. I have zero sympathy for you. And you will not be living in my house. For a second, nobody moved. Then Veronica lunged. She came at me like a wild animal. Her hand connected with my face in a sharp slap that made my ears ring. She tried to claw at my eyes, fingers reaching for my face, but Marcus grabbed her from behind. Wrapped both arms around her waist. She was screaming. Kicking her legs. Let me go. Let me go. I'll scratch his fucking eyes out. Marcus was grunting, struggling to hold her back. My father moved between us. My mother was crying, or pretending to cry, I couldn't tell anymore. I held up my phone. Made sure everyone could see it. Get out now or I'm calling the cops. And Veronica? My phone recorded your assault. Every second of it. Try anything else and I will press charges. The room went dead silent except for Veronica's heavy breathing. My mother's voice came out small. We're leaving. But you have 1 week to come to your senses. Don't come back, I said. They filed out slowly. Veronica was still crying, loudly, dramatically, face buried in her hands. Marcus's kids looked confused and scared. My father wouldn't look at me. My mother was the last one at the door. She turned back, mascara running down her face. 1 week. That's all you get. Then they were gone. The door slammed. And I was left standing in my living room, my face still stinging from where Veronica had hit me, my hands shaking as I held my phone. But I wasn't going to wait. I wasn't going to give them time to spin this. I went straight to Facebook and posted the entire story. Everything that had just happened. I included clips from the video. I posted it before they could even get home to write their own version. And then I waited to see what would happen next. The response was immediate. Comments started pouring in within minutes. But these weren't from my parents or Marcus or Veronica. These were from extended family members I hadn't talked to in years. My uncle, my mother's own brother, was the first to comment. I always knew something was wrong with how they treated you. I'm so sorry we didn't see it sooner. Then my cousin, I always thought something was off but they hid it so well. We all owe you an apology. An aunt I barely knew, the "do it for Marcus" line makes so much sense now. That's all we ever heard growing up. More comments flooded in. People taking my side. People who'd previously defended my parents now turning against them. The family members who used to make excuses for my mother's behavior, the "flying monkeys" as I'd always thought of them, even they were switching sides. For the first time in my entire life, people were believing me over them. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "You're a horrible brother." A voice I didn't recognize screamed at me. "Real men make room for family. You should be ashamed." I hung up. Blocked the number. That was the only negative call I got. An hour later, my parents finally posted their response. But it was weak. Defensive. They couldn't contradict the video evidence. They couldn't explain away Veronica's assault. They couldn't justify Marcus's demands. The comments on their post tore them apart. 1 week. That's what they'd said. I had 1 week before they'd come back. I spent that week installing chain latches on my front door. 2 of them. Heavy duty. I bought a security camera system and installed it myself. Every angle of my house was now being recorded. If they tried something, I'd have proof. The week felt like the longest 7 days of my life. Every car that drove past my house made me tense. Every notification on my phone made me jump. But the days passed. Monday. Tuesday. Wednesday. Thursday. Friday. Saturday. Nothing. Sunday morning, exactly 1 week after their first visit, my doorbell rang. Then it rang again. And again. And again. Then pounding. Fists on my door. Bang 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 bang. I walked to the door, phone already in my hand recording. I opened it just a crack. The chain latches held it in place. My father and Marcus tried to shove it open. The chains caught. The door stopped after a few inches. I could see the shock on their faces through the gap. "Open this door right now." My father's voice was a roar. "Let us in. We need to talk." Marcus pushed against the door again. I kept my voice calm. "I'm recording this on camera. If you force your way into my house, I'm calling the police immediately." My mother appeared behind them. She pushed them both aside gently, then put on that smile. That sweet, fake, poisonous smile. "Sweetheart," she said in a voice like honey. "Honey, have you thought about what we discussed? Are you ready to let your brother move in?" "Fuck off," I said clearly. "And never come back." Her face crumpled. The fake tears started flowing. "Why can't you just do this for Marcus? He's your beloved brother. He needs this." I felt something break inside me. All the years of being told to be quiet. To suck it up. To let Marcus have everything. To be the lesser son. "I do not love him as a brother," I said, my voice rising. "He treated me like shit for years and you only encouraged him. You're terrible parents. He's a terrible brother. Now leave or I'm calling the cops right now." I could see my father's face turning red behind my mother. But they left. Surprisingly easily. Just dirty looks and my mother's theatrical crying. I watched through the window as they got in their cars and drove away. It felt too easy. Way too easy. I should have trusted that feeling. Friday evening, 5 days later, I was driving home from work. It had been a long week but a good one. My promotion was going well. I was settling into my house. Life was finally feeling stable. I turned onto my street and my heart stopped. There was a moving truck in my driveway. A full-size moving truck. And Marcus's minivan parked right next to it. They were moving furniture into my house. Marcus was carrying a box up my front steps. He saw me pull up. And he waved. Actually waved at me. With this shit-eating grin on his face like this was totally normal. Veronica was on the porch supervising, that same smirk from before on her face. I got out of my truck, my hands shaking with rage. "What the hell are you doing? Stop. Right now." Veronica tilted her head. Puckered her lips. And spoke to me in the most condescending baby talk voice I'd ever heard. "It's okay, sweetie. Your mommy allowed it. You should always listen to what your mommy tells you. Be a good boy now." I've never wanted to scream at someone more in my entire life. But I didn't. I got back in my truck, locked the doors, and called 911. Veronica realized what I was doing. She ran to my window and started pounding on it. "Stop calling them. You can't do this to me. We need this house. Why can't you just do this for Marcus?" I kept talking to the dispatcher, giving them my address, explaining the situation. Then Veronica said something that sealed her fate. "If you don't stop calling right now, I'll key the side of your truck." I swear to God I'll do it. The 911 operator's voice came through my phone, loud enough that Veronica could hear through my cracked window. Ma'am, did you just threaten to vandalize his vehicle? I have that on recording. Veronica's face went pale. She backed away from my truck. If you damage my truck, I'll sue you, I called through the window. Back off. She retreated to the porch where Marcus was standing, looking confused. Within minutes, 2 police cars pulled up. I got out and met them in the driveway. I showed them my driver's license with my current address. Explained everything that had happened over the past 2 weeks. Showed them the video from the first confrontation. Then we walked to the front door. That's when I saw it. My front door lock had been drilled out. Completely destroyed. The lock mechanism was lying on my porch in pieces. And sitting right next to it was a drill with a complete set of Harbor Freight drill bits. They'd broken into my house. I pointed at the destroyed lock and the drill. They drilled out my lock to break in. One of the officers picked up the drill, examined it, then looked at the door. His expression hardened. That's when my parents showed up. Marcus must have called them at some point because their car pulled up right as I was explaining to the police what had happened. My mother rushed over. Officers, there's been a misunderstanding. He agreed to rent the house to his brother. This is just a family dispute. I looked at her calmly. That's an easily provable lie. Marcus and Veronica finally came out of my house. Both of them were holding papers. Printed documents. They looked so smug. So confident. Marcus held them up. We have a rental agreement. Right here. Signed. One of the officers took the papers and examined them under his flashlight. I looked over his shoulder. There was a signature on the document. But it looked nothing like my actual signature. It was a terrible forgery. That signature looks nothing like my handwriting, I said calmly. That's blatant forgery. I looked directly at Marcus and my parents. You realize that's fraud, right? If the police investigate this, they'll figure it out easily. You could go to jail. Marcus could lose his job, his only way to provide for his family. Marcus's face went white. Completely drained of color. But I wasn't done. And let me be clear, I said, my voice loud enough for everyone to hear. You drilled out my lock to break in. That's breaking and entering. You forged my signature on fake documents. That's fraud. Veronica attacked me on video. That's assault. I could call CPS about this whole situation. I let that sink in for a moment. I could destroy your lives if I wanted to. The only reason I haven't already pressed charges is for the sake of those kids. They need their father. So you have one chance. Get your stuff out of my house and leave. Or I ruin everything. My mother's face changed. The fake tears stopped. She looked at Veronica and spoke quietly. I couldn't hear what she said. But Veronica's reaction was immediate. She started loudly crying. Then she ripped up the fake rental papers into tiny pieces and threw them in the air like confetti. Fine. Fine, she screamed. Are you happy now? One of the officers stepped forward. Ma'am, pick up those paper pieces or I'm citing you for littering. 2 more police cars pulled up. Now there were 4 cops standing in my driveway. 4. For my ridiculous family. Marcus had to tell his kids to start moving boxes back to the truck. All 4 kids were crying. The oldest was sobbing about not getting his own room now. They formed a line. Passing boxes hand to hand. Loading everything back into the moving truck. But Veronica wasn't done. She gathered all the kids together in the front yard. Marcus stood with them. And I swear to God, it was the most rehearsed, practiced thing I'd ever seen. All 4 kids had the exact same expression. The exact same pouty face. The exact same quivering lip. Veronica positioned herself next to them, rubbing her pregnant belly in slow circles. She tilted her head to the side. Made her eyes as big and sad as possible. Marcus made the saddest face he could possibly make. Please, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Please don't do this to us. We need to be able to live here. We have nowhere else to go. I didn't move. Didn't react. Just watched them. Then all the kids and Veronica turned up the crying. Suddenly they were all wailing at volume 11. Marcus's face shifted from sad to angry. Are you satisfied with yourself? You've denied us a home because you're too selfish to share and help out your family. And I laughed. I couldn't help it. I started laughing like a maniac. Like the Joker. The absurdity of it all just hit me. What you're trying to do is taking, not sharing. I shouted back. No amount of crying will make me let your family move into my house. You're no brother of mine anymore. You're just an entitled prick who thinks he can take whatever he wants from me like when we were kids. Marcus started dropping F-bombs. The cops stepped in. One of them warned him he'd be cuffed if he didn't control his language. Marcus shut up immediately. I turned to the officers. Can you please stay until they're completely gone? One of them nodded. We weren't planning on leaving anyway. 2 more police cars showed up. 6 cops total now. My family had become an 8-cop situation. They kept loading boxes. The kids eventually stopped crying. Veronica was sulking on the grass, refusing to help. Before they finished, I needed Marcus to give me something. Give me the keys to my new lock, Marcus. He looked at the keys in his hand like they were the last piece of power he had over me. Then he threw them. As hard as he could down the street. They sailed through the air in a perfect arc and landed directly in a storm drain. Go get them yourself, he yelled. One of the officers immediately stepped forward. Sir. Go get those keys. Right now. That's theft. Marcus's face shifted between defiant and afraid. Finally, fear won. He walked down the street to the storm drain, pulled off the heavy grate, and got down on his hands and knees. I watched him reach into that storm drain, his hands and knees getting wet and filthy, fishing around for my keys. It was possibly the most satisfying thing I'd ever seen. He finally retrieved them, covered in grime and storm water. Walked back and slammed them down into my palm hard enough to hurt. My mother played her final card. You'll be disowned for this. You'll have no family. I looked at her and smiled sarcastically. Oh no. That means I won't get to come to family holidays where I'm always treated like shit anyway because Marcus has always been your obvious favorite child. I paused, then added, you know what? Do like you always told me to do when Marcus mistreated me. Suck it up. My parents just stood there. Mouths open. Completely speechless. The 8 cops were all staring at my parents now. Judgmental. Disgusted. But I wasn't done. I had years of pain that needed to come out. And these cops were about to be witnesses. You wanted me out of my own house so Marcus could stay here free of charge, I said, my voice carrying across the street. Neighbors were coming out now, watching. But when I was homeless and desperate, you wanted to gouge me for more than I could afford just to park my camper at your house. You knew I had no job. You knew I was struggling. And you laughed at me. My father's face was turning red. But not with anger this time. With embarrassment. What did I ever do to deserve being treated so badly? What? Because when I finally have a bit of success in my life, you want to snatch it away and give it to your favorite child. I was on a roll now. The words were pouring out. I bought this house with money I earned. I owe you nothing. And I will never ask you for anything ever again. Because clearly I will never be anything more than a doormat or a cash cow in your eyes. I looked directly at both of them. So tell me, what in God's name made you think you were good parents after all of that? Silence. Dead silence. My mother was crying. Real tears this time. My father looked more defeated than I'd ever seen him. I'm a horrible person, my mother whispered. You are a horrible person, I agreed. You all are. And I bet you'll go to hell for it too. You're shitty people and you know it. You've always known it. But you kept up the denial so long it became part of who you are. Nobody had a response. They just stood there like fish out of water. Marcus and his family avoided looking at me entirely. They finished loading the truck in silence. Got in their vehicles. As they drove away, I saw Veronica staring at me through the minivan window. Pure hatred in her eyes. I didn't care. I immediately went back inside and posted the entire update to social media. Every detail. The break-in. The fake papers. The police involvement. Everything. This time, my parents didn't even try to defend themselves. They were too embarrassed. The family response was a landslide. Even the people who'd previously supported my parents went silent. The "we did it for Marcus" excuse didn't work anymore. My uncle, my mother's own brother, commented, "Your mother has some serious explaining to do to this entire family. I'm ashamed I didn't believe you sooner." A cousin, the "do it for Marcus" thing makes so much sense now. That's literally all we ever heard growing up. The support was overwhelming. A few weeks later, I posted another update. I was hosting Christmas Eve at my house. I invited half the family. Extended relatives who'd always been kind to me but hadn't known the full extent of my parents' favoritism. 47 people said they were coming. My parents, Marcus, and Veronica were not invited. I saw on social media that Veronica had her 4th baby in November. They were still living with my parents. And Veronica kept making these passive-aggressive posts about not having enough space and some people have everything while we have nothing. I didn't engage. Just watched. Christmas Eve arrived. My house was full of family who actually cared about me. We had music playing. My uncle brought this incredible Ray Charles Christmas album. There were cookies, drinks, laughter. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. 2 hours into the party, the front door opened. I hadn't locked it because family was coming in and out. My parents walked in. Then Marcus and Veronica with all 4 kids. They were trying to act like they were invited. All smiles. They even brought wrapped gifts. I immediately shut off the music. Leave. Now. But before I could say another word, my uncle, my mother's own brother, stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly across the floor. You don't deserve to be in his home or his life after the shit you tried to pull, he roared. Multiple relatives backed him up. He's right. You should leave. This is his home. My grandparents, my mother's parents, stood up next. If you want to make amends with him, it's far too soon, my grandmother said quietly but firmly. You've never been more disappointing to us than this past year. You hid your favoritism for so long, but no one is fooled anymore. You need to actually try to treat him like a son if you want him in your life again. Then my grandfather turned to Marcus and Veronica. We've seen the repetitive nonsense Veronica keeps posting online. We're tired of it. Let it go. His house will not become your home. Accept it and move on. Veronica's face crumpled. She plopped down into one of my chairs and started having a full tantrum. I should be living here. Not him. It's not fair. I have 4 kids who need more space and I just want a better place to live and feel like a real mom. I'd had enough. You suck as a mother. I said loud enough for everyone to hear. You let my mother do most of the parenting while you sit on your butt all day drinking, playing on your phone, or going out spending all of Marcus's money. I was going too far and I knew it, but I couldn't stop. I'm surprised your baby doesn't get drunk from your breast milk considering how much you drink. Some relatives gave me looks. That was too harsh. I knew it. Veronica stood up, pointing at me. Are you calling me a bad mom? The evidence speaks for itself. If you want to afford to move out someday, use your college degree, get a job, and learn to save money instead of spending everything Marcus makes. That's when Marcus's 7-year-old son came running at me. He started kicking my shins and screaming. You're bad. You made my mom cry. She said you didn't let us live here. You're mean. Marcus grabbed his son to pull him away. But it was too late. The whole room erupted. Every relative started talking at once. Shouting at my parents, at Marcus, at Veronica. Listing all the things they'd done wrong. How they'd hidden the favoritism. How they'd treated me. How they tried to steal my house. Veronica was crying. Her baby was crying. All the kids were crying. Marcus was nearly in tears himself. He ended up sitting on the ottoman by my front door, looking like a complete wreck. He couldn't look anyone in the eye. Couldn't defend himself with a whole house full of angry family members ready to judge his every word. Their reputations in the family were completely destroyed. The masks were permanently off. They left about 20 minutes later. Defeated. Humiliated. Broken. The second the door closed behind them, someone turned the music back on. The party resumed like nothing had happened. And we all agreed, this would be our new Christmas tradition. Without them. After Christmas, something interesting happened. Veronica stopped making passive-aggressive posts about me. She deleted all the old ones. Then, shortly after New Year's, she made one more post. She was trying to convince my parents to get a camper and set it up in their backyard. So Marcus's family could use the entire house while my parents lived outside. Taste of their own medicine. My parents shut that down immediately. The post disappeared within 2 days. Veronica hasn't posted much since. I guess she finally realized nobody was listening to her complaints anymore. Marcus can't afford to move his family out on his salary alone. They're still living with my parents in that cramped 3-bedroom house. 3 loud kids, 1 newborn, an unstable wife, their golden child son, and my aging parents all under one roof. I wonder if they regret refusing to let me park my camper there when I needed help. Me? Things have mellowed out significantly. I started inviting friends over for poker nights. I'm terrible at poker, can never remember the rules, but we drink beer, eat junk food, and just have a good time being merry idiots. One night we loaded up on Burger King Whoppers and just laughed until our stomachs hurt. I'm thinking about dating someone around summer. I'm not getting younger, after all. Fingers crossed that goes well. My camper sits idle in my backyard now. Some days I go out there just to sit in it. I lived in that thing for 2 years. It feels like a second home. And maybe someday I'll actually use it for camping. Real camping. The way it was meant to be used. I've never been camping before. My parents always said it was a waste of time. But using that camper for its intended purpose, exploring, adventuring, being free, would be one more way to prove them wrong. I bought my house with money I earned. I survived homelessness. I survived my family trying to take everything from me. And now I'm building the life I always deserved. If this story taught you anything, drop a comment below. Tell me if you think I did the right thing. And if you've dealt with entitled family members, I want to hear about it. Hit that like button if you made it this far. Subscribe because trust me, I've got more stories about my family that'll blow your mind.